Hello everybody, welcome back. Season 3, Session 3, Part 2, huh? Almost there. Almost there, boys. We can get trace. Right? No? Okay, you guys are. Okay. Let us bring this round to something a little bit different. We're going to bring our attention down to Austrade, where we have the Riders of Wherein are pulling in. Now I feel like I have to sneeze.
For Linger.
Nope, no sneeze. Okay.
Rohirrim. I'm sorry. Wrong. My bad.
Sorry, I changed the music, and that music happens to be much louder than the other one. So the for the Riders of Wherein are making their way over to Austrade. Unfortunately, just the way it goes is some of the music is so frigging quiet no matter what I do on my mixer or YouTube or whatever, because it's pulled off of YouTube. It's so quiet, I have to turn other things up so you can actually hear it. And the other one, it's like, oh, switch to this one. It's so loud! It's like, ah! Anyways, so the Riders of Wherein are approaching Austrade. Now, they already knew what their task was. They knew what they had to do. The Riders of Wherein have their own job, and I'm not going to allow you to control the NPCs and how it is that they're doing their job. What I am going to do, however, is give you guys a little bit of meta knowledge, because who do you think is going to be the one controlling that army? You guessed it, Neil. Neil is the one controlling the army. Just kidding. It is, There we go. Perfect. So, it's going to be both of you boys. So we're going to bring ourselves over to where it is that this is going to take place. We're going to go over to that other map in just 1 second, where we're going to see, once again, this is just a simple battlefield map just to symbolize, so we can kind of like visualize what it is that's going on, nice and easy for everybody. Ooh, hello, Steve. I honestly don't even remember what that means, because we haven't used that yet. I'll look that up in 1 second.
Take the advantage.
Yeah, I gotta look up what that does, because I haven't used that one yet.
You know what? I'll do it for you. +1 OM for this whole battle round.
Ooh, hello. That's amazing for you boys. All right.
Thanks,
so,
Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
See, I'm grateful.
No. Neil is grateful. Neil is a very grateful person. Neil's actually a pretty good guy. Right, guys? Don't we all agree that Neil is a good guy?
Are you hitting on me, Scott?
No. Why does your mind go there?
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure I know when I'm hitting on somebody.
No.
I could be wrong. It could be one of those things that like
you did build a whole kingdom just for me, and also asked me to be your queen. The evidence is stacking up.
That's nice. So HP is 18. OM is 6. And DV is 16. So what we had set up on this was that HP, I believe, is going to be covered by, what did we say HP is? Green. So we can do this correctly. We're going to now have HP be green, which is 18. We're going to have attack, which is OM. I think we said 6. I think defense was 16. Is how we're doing that. Double checking our details for our kingdom. So it's 18, 16, and 6. Yes. And then he just gave you, what was it? A +1 to attack? Neil?
A +1 to OM.
Yep, so that's +1 to attack, which is amazing. So your stats are actually, if you're looking at that character, it's actually going to be 7 out of 6. So you actually have a above average attack for the character, and so on and so forth. Coolio. All right, I'm dropping the bad guys in there.
Hell Troopers dropping in.
Haude Gwenh. These are Haude Gwenh auxiliary. You know what I mean? These are like the other people's. So their army. Their army is 200. Your army is 200. And I just got to finish getting the rest of their details, and we're gonna run this battle for you in 1 second. Are you guys excited for the combat?
Hells yeah.
Yep. Cool. I gotta have these tokens more prepared though. I'm disappointed in myself, I must say.
Who isn't, Scott? You should
disappointed in themselves. I agree. It's a pretty common thing, unfortunately.
You should put the token right next to, or like nearly next to the Wherein one.
All right. 1 second. Yep, I'm gonna put it much closer in 1 second. Boom. So I have those details readily available so I can see them. Because again, militia, which this technically is not anywhere near as strong as an army, especially ones with riders. But they do actually have bows. And then I think I was doing beforehand this and this. This is too big.
Excuse me.
Nope, too big. So we do that half that. And 30. And we'll go with advanced. And then everybody can see. There we go. And we do the same thing over here, where it's 15 and 30. And everybody can see. We're done. There we go. So now we have that. Except the Riders of Wherein don't have bows. So we have to get rid of the 30 marker and just go to the 15 marker. And we'll change her colors to purple because Scott's awesome. All right, there we go. And now we can see on stream, of course, what is happening there. We have 2 take the advantages. Hello. They want to give you 2 2+1s. That's sexy. Thank you, Josh.
Hells yeah.
Cool. So
What happens when you put an NPC in danger?
Yeah. So this gets us to an 8 over here. So that's actually a really high bonus. So who is going to do the rolling of the dice for Hinta?
No.
That sounds terrible.
Okay. Oh yeah, Scott, slurp it off live on Twitch.
That is very hot.
Welcome to Scott ASMR.
So anyways, you are, Neil's going to be the one that rolls for Hinta. So let's remind you quickly, very quick reminder, and then we can jump into it, of how the combat works. There's going to be, each round is going to have multiple steps to it. The steps to it are going to be tactical phase, range phase, melee phase, route. Okay? So tactical phase is what happens first. This is literally Hinta rolls her profession soldier versus the leader on the other side, the commander on the other side. Hinta's profession soldier is literally, I think I have it under the commander tab, right? Where are you, Hinta? I don't think she has any. Profession soldier, she actually has 2. She actually has a +2. So her profession soldier is actually a +2. She actually gets a modifier. Would you like to roll first, sir? That means roll first.
Okay, so it's D20 plus.
2 for Hinta.
Oh, I just typed /D20 plus 2. Come on, roll 20. Get with it. Go the times.
And then we're going to describe the battlefield after we get this started, okay? Okay. Beautiful. I win. So, oh, you didn't tell me your tactics first. That's fine. So anyways, the battlefield that used to have the Riders of Wherein riding into. Again, I say again because I remember that I described this already to patrons, but not everybody has seen this. So Strahd is not a very big town, but that doesn't matter because you're not quite meeting them at the town, you're meeting them outside of it. You can see the town off into the distance. This is springtime. You have grass sprouting up, flowers are starting to make their way through. There's not much snow left on the ground because snow melts rather quickly here. Only areas where it was a kind of deep snow that there's little patches that are left behind. This is the battlefield that we see. The ground is still a bit mucky, still a bit muddy because of all the melted snow, leaving it really just kind of like soppy. Not to mention early springs tend to have a bit of rain that happens to it. Neil is prepping his banana, and the soldiers are looking across each other with the kind of like a gap of land between them. The battlefield wasn't chosen because it was the best battlefield necessarily. The battlefield was chosen because it's where the armies happen to meet one another. There was some time of planning between them, but again, you can see Strahd to the south. One of the quick things that your commander notices, looking at the way that the other troops are lined up, one of the way that their troops kind of react, is that the soldiers on the other side of the battlefield seem to not be very well practiced, seem to not be lifelong career soldiers, people that have had a considerable amount of training, even if the formations that are kind of forming into sloppily seem to be actually rather advanced formations. It gives Hinta a little bit of a concern because she knows that her soldiers have a lot more training, but her leadership on the battlefield is rather limited. So it gives her a little bit of concern. Otherwise, it has come to morning where she has to start planning her attack. what is the approach that Hinta intends to do? And by that I mean, you remember the different steps of combat that you can choose. Getting to that tab 1 second. In the range, no, sorry. In the tactical phase,
You go
you have to
one
choose.
step defensive.
So you want to go cautious advance.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys intend to use the cautious advance approach. And then Hinta does have access to, what's her ability? She has a tactic called Cavalry Sweep. That actually has no benefit in this combat. That's actually super effective when she's fighting multiple armies at the same time. So no tactics, I imagine. Sorry. You just got to do a normal advance.
You just said she has
Well, you also have the typical. You can retreat. You can whatever. So my apologies. Just normal attack with the tactic choice of cautious approach. Beautiful. So cautious advance. So that's going to be your approach. You can actually. So that is what you're going to do. Is you're going to start approaching cautiously towards them. They're going to make their decision as it is, and then your soldiers start to move forward.
Ooh, Hinta has cavalry expert. +2 OM versus foot soldiers.
She does. I think is it already applied, or is that not?
I don't know. Let me see.
Oh, it says I have written here. So your OM is +2 versus non-mounted. Yeah.
I would imagine that it's not already applied.
Correct. It is not because it has to be situational.
There's no requirement to apply it because we're also doing a cautious advance.
Correct. So that just more or less means your DV is +2 for this for now. So can you click on the actual token that's on the screen for Riders of Wherein? You should be able to.
Yep.
So when you click on that, can you just more or less your OM is going to stay where it is, and can you just increase your DV, which is the blue one, by 2? So it should say 18 out of 16. And I can zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see a little bit more if you'd like.
Why did I increase my OM?
Your DV you increase, not your OM.
Yeah, because of my tactics. Sorry.
Correct. Cautious advance. So as you guys are approaching one another, technically, one went that way, one went this way. As you guys are approaching one another, you can see, and it's kind of like too late that you noticed, that the soldiers on the other side really dug in their heels, and it's kind of like plotted out where it was that you might be coming in.
Full defense. I predicted this.
They plotted in their heels, and they got their bows at the ready, and they're going to use the ranged phase while you're choosing your ranged phase to advance. They're using their ranged phase to attack you. Now, unfortunately, they don't have particularly skilled soldiers, so they're going to do the best they can. Yay. And dugging in their heels, they actually also did cautious advance, but that's fine. So I have to open roll this, unfortunately, so I can't lie. I have to be honest. Here is my attack roll against you with these guys. Yep, that was the range phase. So as you guys are approaching, they take shots at you. However, the Riders of Wherein are not untrained, and know that they can whether it be behind shields or whatever the case may be, juking to the side and kind of moving at patterns, and certainly charging forward very fast. There aren't as many bows on the other side, crossbows on the other side, as a typical army of that size would have. And because of that, their attack is actually a little flimsy. Your soldiers, barely any injuries, are able to break through their line of arrows before they have to start pulling out their weapons to meet you on the actual regular field of battle. You guys continue riding forward at one another. When we come to the melee phase. Melee phase, sir, we can both roll more or less at the same time. It is going to be you. I think you have a +8 now. You do. Holy wow.
Indeed. 1d20 +8. Noise.
Oh my god, I forget how critical hits work in this. Oh my god, that's so painful. Oh my god. Oh, that's so bad. Oh no, this is so bad. Natural 20. In the offensive check, if the offensive check is natural 20, but that check is lower than the Army's DV, it still deals 1 point of damage. If it's natural 1, they can't attempt an offensive check in the next. That's all it says. Okay, so more or less is your natty 20 doesn't do anything extra, but oh god damn it, that is so bad. Oh God. Okay. Do you know how much damage you do to me?
I'm
I'm gonna tell you.
considering. Do you
My,
reckon they have a DV of 14?
they actually have a DV of 13.
Oh my god.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Oh, this is so bad. Almost immediately, almost instantly. Like we're talking in the first melee phase. I rolled against you with a 14. What's your DV?
18 right now.
They barely any of your soldiers get injured as your army just washes like a tidal wave over them. Ah! In the name of Farron, there will be peace.
What a thing to shout when you're murdering people.
Oh my God, that is so crazy. Oh my God, you rolled so. Oh, so anyways, you
I
are.
was lucky.
You guys are just like rolling over them and just slaughtering them, and that happens very, very, very quickly. Oh God, I mean, how long did we say it's? I'm sorry, I'm just like baffled by this. Tactical phase is what? Can you do me a favor? 1d6, sir. Jake, you roll it. 1d6. Six hours of planning, which is hilarious. Plus 1 hour, and then Jake, 1d6 one more time. I hope you roll really short. Roll a 1. Make me happy. Roll a 1. You can just press up enter, just so you know. It pulls up the last thing you typed. 2. In the total of 9 hours, with 6 of them being you're planning the strategy, checking out the field, so on and so forth, looking at the other enemy, blah, 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 your army just washes over them like a huge tidal wave. I have to make a morale check for... you already routed the army. I have to make a morale check for something else, and I have to roll with a penalty. This is painful. So 1d20. Here we go. Okay, I rolled very well on this. What ends up happening is as the Riders of Wherein wash over the army, they just in less than 3 hours of battle. Riding through the bows being shot, they just clash with them. The other army immediately goes to retreat. Their intention is a full withdrawal. Everybody is abandoning the post. People are running back. So many of the soldiers are just running back to their houses to try to protect their husbands, wives, children, whatever it might be, protect their farms. They're like, I'm not a part of this. Screw this. And they're just turning around to yeet back to their house and protect their the people that are there instead of engaging on the field here. As that's happening, what do the Riders of Wherein do?
I mean, she's been told to crush their military. There's no need to pursue because that increases the chance of them getting caught by a larger force from Haude Gwenh, and they're mounted, so going into a town also doesn't work to your favor. I mean, we've in effect shattered their army, their morale for now. She can give them a brief message to stay out the war and continue on her way, I guess.
Well,
Would she have a chance to capture their commander, though?
So before we can do anything else, I need you to roll me a 1d20 plus 2. So more or less you're saying do not pursue the soldiers. That's not necessary. And then getting to the commander portion. Roll me a 1d20 plus 2 for Hinta. for Hinta. Beautiful. One of the things that you notice is as the soldiers are retreating to make their way back to their homes and whatnot, the commander, which there is a definitive commander that happens to have one other soldier riding at with them. And again, they stand out on a battlefield. It's not necessarily that Hinta notices them, it's their soldiers do and kind of inform her, so on and so forth. This person is riding as well. However, instead of riding back to that village, same as the others, he's actually riding. So instead of let me look at the map again. Let's bring us back. This combat is over. You guys destroyed it in 1 round. Jesus. Instead of riding back to Ostrad to the south, they actually immediately start riding to the east. They start looking like they're going to retreat straight to the east. What do
to the east?
Correct.
They're like, peace out, I'm leaving a deer.
Would Hinta pursue this commander in an attempt to try to get them, or would she allow them to retreat to the east?
I'd say she would pursue the commander, but not into Peridot.
Yeah, she wouldn't be so dumb as to provoke Peridot, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree.
Because we've probably been through this with her, and like taking the commanders is like a if able is something that 100%
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that she would want to do is, as we're talking about right now, is trying to capture the commander. To do so is actually, so luckily you guys were actually only 1 hex away, and the battle started early, and it's 9 hours of combat that kind of like transpired there. The soldiers are tired from this the fight for this day, but they can push on if you wish for them to do so. What you need to do is okay, cool. What you need to do is roll me a morale check for Hinta, for her to continue pushing on the soldiers to go that direction. Her morale check, once again, where's her?
What does cavalry sweep do?
Her morale is a +2. Cavalry sweep is a beautiful thing when you're fighting multiple armies. It allows her to attack 2 armies at the same time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking sweet. We just haven't gotten to that complicated of a battle yet.
Thank the Lord. Right. You wanted Hinta to roll something, yep.
Correct. It was a morale check to convince her, not to convince her soldiers, to get her soldiers to act quick enough and ride quick enough to go. This is
What
just
would
like
that be?
I was saying 1d20 +2.
Okay. Nailed it. Commander, mate.
Oh my God, Neil! I was gonna say, are you gonna use it, Daddy? But I guess we don't have to worry about it. So and
Can't
we're gonna
use Daddy's dice anyway. Come on, Scott. Remember your own rules.
No, I know. I just like to make it. Anyways, so you literally roll through them as soon as they like finish up the battle and they're running back. One of the soldiers come rushing over to Hinta and they're like Hinta, there's we've spotted the commander. They're not heading back to Estrad like the rest. They're heading directly east. Actually, the road to the east. Looks like they're looking to free to Peridot. And she looks back at them and she's like, Peridot? Are they looking to provoke the armies? Well, we can't have that happen. She looks at her best riders and say, go around ahead of them. Get ahead of them. You do not ride steeds of Idir. You ride the steeds of Wherein. Ride your horses. Make their hooves bleed if need be. Let's show them what Wherein does. And sends off the horses like ahead of them to cut them off. And she gathers up the whole army, or not the whole army. She leaves behind, of course, a portion here to make sure that there's no reamassing, right? She gathers together a whole bunch of soldiers and starts riding east as fast as she can. And the couple of soldiers kind of as they're approaching from behind the commanders, and the commanders kind of yeah. All of a sudden, a bunch of soldiers appear in front of them as well. They realize they're completely cut off. This is where things get a little strange, and while your dice, your natty 20 actually factors in there, Neil. What ends up happening next is something that she can't explain. But she'll have to next time that you see to her. The short version is, gathering the commander with your natty 20 is going to be successful. I'll give you that. But it comes with a bit of a surprise and a bit of a cost that nobody had planned for. Once again, you'll have to speak to Hinta before anything else can be said. Let us flash forward. Let us flash back.
Momig appears and says, one final act, and flicks him off his horse. And then...
You'll get a message in a couple days when she uses the pigeon thing to speak to you. All right. Back to Wherein and 1. You guys are heading to the army of Valorant with where they're stationed just north of Vigil. Cool. I already described to it beforehand. I described how the north of where the lake is, how it's up on a ridge. They're building a ranger tower. They're doing this, that, and the other thing. The ranger tower is a little bit more constructed like it was beforehand. I described how what's his name is not a douche, and he doesn't make you come to see him. He stands outside and awaits you, and awaits your approach, and gives you the appropriate salute and whatnot as you approach. And I mentioned there were 2 things that I wanted to go over when you got there. But the first one, of course, being the meeting of the minds, the commanders. The commanders that happen to be here in your camp, of course, are your general. Hold on. Here we go. Are, of course, let's just go over this one more time. Your general, Leon, is here. Arthur is also here. Elliot is also here. And then, of course, Kithel is not because he's elsewhere. The only ones that were left home were Lander and Edric. Okay? So Elliot, Arthur, and Leon are all here at the army. You meet with those leaders as well as with various other nameless or named important persons that we've discussed beforehand. But most importantly, you also have Commander Cedric is going to meet with you at your camp. He spends half of his day, because it's such a quick ride. It's like a half-hour ride or so between here and... oh, my apologies. No, it's not. It's like a 2-hour ride between here and Vigil. So he spends like maybe 2 days in Vigil, 1 day here, 2 days in Vigil, 1 day here. It's kind of like how he's going to do it. Unless you guys request presence, then he'll stay here. Usually Octavia doesn't come out. If you request her, obviously, these are things that like don't need an RP. I'm just telling you, if you request somebody like her to come out, she will definitely come out. Moving on. So you meet with the commanders, with everybody there, and you kind of gather around there. One of the things that you notice that they've done is they've laid out a round table similar to what you have inside your map room in all of your keeps, with maps laid out. They're sketched out in a way that's kind of similar to the map room that you have back at your keep, but of course only with this portion, like from Varen down to Leshev, down to Harad, up to, the line of Paradal. Only like this kind of like zoomed in kind of area. You don't need the rest of it, and you don't need all the keeps displayed on there because you don't want to show all the other persons that stuff exists. Of course, your general is smart. The meeting starts. I didn't know within the approach if you, the PCs, would like to say words to the NPCs before they start talking about the meeting. So I'm going to toss it to you.
Other than like reiterating that we're going to have 1,000 extra fighting men and women, courtesy of the free folk, to boost morale a little bit, and commenting on, like they're doing a good job with the camp. You're like, oh, your camp tower's very nice, and Elliot's like, thanks, I designed it myself. And we're like, good job, boy. Pat him on the head. There you go.
The camp as well is still being constructed anyways, but go ahead.
Other than that, nothing specific.
Okay. So just like basic stuff? Okay. So Leon is going to look to fill you in. Like, as you say your words, and you kind of like toss it over to him and say, I'd like to say first and foremost, on behalf of all of the wartime leadership that we have here, on behalf of all the peoples of Daelric, that we rejoice in the successes that happened in Rid. We rejoice in the fact that very few of our men, our women, of our elderly and our children were injured or laid to rest that day. And we rejoice in the fact that our chosen were not only victorious, but also returned to us safely. In the names of Vroga, Lady Orenda, and the Martyr, we appreciate the blessings that they've given to us on this battlefield and what we've received in return. He looks at the two of you, because I think Val is, would be, even though you guys just approached, he didn't necessarily know you were coming today, he's actually going to be inside Vigil, handling a couple of minor details and then coming back out afterwards, because you guys can send people either way, right? And he has a relationship there. He's going to look to the two of you and say, personally, I'm glad to see that you had survived. Welcome.
Thank you, Leon.
Now, as for the details of what had transpired up in Rid, there are a few details that we need to go over. For one, it was quite the victory. Certainly the enemy was crushed, and we sent a message to Haude Gwenh. I do unfortunately have a bit of a question as to what message we are attempting to send to Haude Gwenh. When we came to this war, I believe we came to it with the understanding that we are not the aggressors, that we are the ones that are unfortunately having to defend ourselves from Haude Gwenh itself, the persons there being the aggressors, the persons there looking to spread their ill will by force upon all of them, those that are around them. And we are luckily an outpost of light, a bit of a savior to them. Sending a decisive blow against them will certainly rattle the soldiers in their army. But two things happened. One, perhaps the light of us being saviors was maybe somewhat had a shadow cast over it. And two, who's going to return that message if nobody left Rid after the defeat?
Did any of the people choose to leave Rid? We didn't.
By the time you left Rid, nobody. By the time you left, but that was days ago, so.
Some of the survivors may choose to return the message. However, they have been offered sanctuary in Reed for now.
If I were those soldiers, I would take the sanctuary. It's seen what it is that you were capable of doing on the battlefield. Again, we cannot deny the degree, the caliber of victory that was had that day. I would choose to stay in the comforts of my enemy's home. Once again, we are seen as kind of a beacon on a hill of sorts, and allow the war to rage itself out. A defeated army serves multiple purposes, and one of them is to instill fear to the remaining soldiers on the other side. I don't think that the fear we were hoping to invoke has transpired because we crushed them so decisively. So I ask, my chosen, what would we like to do moving forward? Do we want them to hear of our victories, or do we want them to see their soldiers march off and not return and allow that to have its own effect?
We already have voices placed in Haude Gwenh, speaking of us, our victories, future victories, and our purpose. Have them speak in such a way to tell of the survival of the people. They don't have to believe it fully, but as long as the rumors exist, there will always be doubt. We crushed those people. I pushed for that. If you come to attack a defenseless settlement, I will not tolerate it. That is the message we sent.
We all know what the army is comprised of coming from Haude Gwenh. We all know that this is indentured servitude, if not borderline slavery, that is done, and why most of these people have conscripted. But that doesn't change the fact that there are people with swords, bows, axes, and the like, marching against a small, quiet farming town full of refugees and peaceful persons. The decision to crush them is not a bad decision. They were the aggressors, we were the defenders. As for people that may be whispering things in our favor, perhaps a more private counsel later on we can discuss of this. He says, looking about the room, more or less giving the eye that not all of you are privy to this kind of information. Like, being very condescending almost, but not in like a rude way. Like, I am the commander, you do not need to hear this. Kind of to them. Obviously not to you, you know everything. Then let us speak of what defenses and the like that we have here. Let's speak of how it is that we intend to do this. We have not provoked Haude Gwenh yet, aside from, of course, capturing their, in theory, greatest commander, if not one of greatest commanders. This is good news. We have the mother, the father, and the child. We can utilize all of them as a means to inspire Haude Gwenn's efforts to bring them here to smash against the walls of Vigil, as we've discussed. How is it we intend to proceed forward? Are we going to continue with the execution that we had discussed?
Beltarune escaped.
Excuse me?
Beltarune escapes. His boots were enchanted with a sort of magic that is powerful, exceedingly so, illegal. His boots remain within the cell. However, he himself has returned to Haude Gwenh, I imagine. He has already told his commanders, his counselors, of what has befallen his men, I imagine. I have a plan related to this. It is not for everyone's ears.
He nods. It's unfortunate that we lost control of their commander. They can be useful for information, for taunting, as we had said beforehand, or at least ransom. Sometimes war is a little too expensive. But we will work with the victories that we have and push them to even greater victories. Do we intend to move forward at the very least with the execution? Cedric is here, and I imagine that he would like to know what to do with his men.
I would rather gain the counsel of my advisors in private before I make a decision like this. I'm sure one agrees that rushing into something as inflammatory as this would do us no good.
I'm sure Chosen of the Hearth might have some say in it as well. So, understood. He looks to Cedric and kind of gives Cedric like a nod, like not yet, and Cedric just nods back, like understood. And he says, as for the armies that we have pulling here, actually I forgot to on the map pull down the Riders of wherein, who came down as well. Ooh, let's put these guys pull to front. Bring these guys down here as well. We can set them here. Yay. Actually, can I do it like this? Yeah. So we have all the armies once again. They're kind of like stacked on each other in like an obnoxious way, but getting all the armies together. He says, we've taken all of our armies and have pulled them to one location, as we've discussed beforehand, except for the Riders of wherein. I believe they were sent to Austrad.
Indeed, they are going to Austrad and then Harrod. They intend to destroy any reinforcements for Haude Gwenh. It should also cripple their scouting in some manner.
Nods. We also had others, a sizable force, join us. Clearly the other meeting has gone well.
Indeed.
Is the tactic against the walls going to change, or will this all be post-council?
I think there is no reason for this tactic to change. One, do you have any insight in the matter?
No, I believe we should probably proceed as planned.
Then I will continue pushing things forward as we've previously discussed. It seems as though beyond everything that we've kind of gone over, which is more a matter of reinforming one another of details that have already transpired, there's very little for us to discuss here. We all understand what our jobs are, where they're meant to be. There is another matter I'd like to bring to your attention. We did have a couple of casualties in planning the camp, but no deaths, just soldiers that will not be able to fight for a short period of time. I imagine they'll have a full recovery. We seem to have unearthed I want to say a settlement, a unique settlement that happens to exist here. There is a farmer of sorts whose land we happen to trespass on in choosing our location. We didn't know that they were here, and choosing the location to build our camp. We did not entirely trudge upon their farm, but certainly took a good portion of their lands, and they were none too appreciative of it. Didn't realize the force of us at first, and took out 2 groups of our scouts utilizing some type of poison or the like. Again, we expect a full recovery. We've detained the farmer because we don't really know how to deal with it. Unfortunately, it's kind of a difficult matter, and we did impose on their lands. These lands belong to nobody, and they claim them as their own. This is what we've discussed in previous contracts as a neutral zone, so again, this is their land. I imagine you'll want to speak with this farmer sometime soon.
Yes, I see no reason to delay.
Very well then. If you would like, you can speak with the farmer. I'll finish up details of the council here with pushing forward the plans as we've discussed. Perhaps give you a moment to cleanse yourself of the road. He says in not a condescending, like, ugh, you look dirty, but like in a giving you an opportunity kind of way. And then we'll have our council this evening.
That sounds like a good plan. Well done, Leon. Keep up the good work.
He nods. Elliot says, Leon, unless you need me any further, I would actually prefer to escort them to the farmer. And Leon just, he doesn't need to ask Leon, but times of war, chain of command. So Leon just looks at him and says, of course. And then he turns his attention back to the rest of them, and they wait until you guys literally step outside the tent, because their attention is kind of like on you, you know what I mean, as it should be. And literally as soon as you guys step out the tent, he's like, back to matters as they were, and then kind of like voices fade in the past as you walk away. Elliot looks to you and as you guys are walking and says, glad to see that you made it.
You as well, Elliot. Though I can't say I ever imagined to see you in the camp of war when we asked you to join us on this endeavor.
Well, considering our first meeting ended with an act of violence, I suppose more acts of violence were only going to happen, right? As he does a really bad joke and poorly phrased.
Well, at least now you're free to assume your research as you did want.
He shakes his head. I imagine not for some time, as we have to settle matters. Listen, I have no love for Haude Gwenh. I just wanted to personally say thank you for what happened in Rid. I don't know if it was meant as a response to what happened to Dwayne and myself, but I can tell you that I personally took heart in the decisions that you've made. I want to see Haude Gwenh crushed. They're not good. They're an evil place, and their influence affects those around them. They need to be gone so that we can return to life as it was before.
Rayron's gonna put his hand on Elliot's shoulder and say, the leadership of Haude Gwenh are not good. They're bad people. You and I both know this. You more firsthand than most. What you want is for them to be gone, washed away, so that Haude Gwenh can become a flourishing town that perhaps someone of your intellect would enjoy to stay in. Imagine the arts that would flourish were the people not crippled by dictators and poverty.
He nods. It's more of an internal nod, like he's nodding to the words outwardly. But, I mean, you don't even have to roll sense motive. You get the idea that maybe he only heard the words that you were saying. Kind of like he's scotted, because he's too internalized at the moment with his own tortured experiences where he almost died and so on and so forth at the hands of Haude Gwenh, the people in Haude Gwenh and whatnot. So,
one says, and don't forget, we still have to deal with Forvin after this. Or it was there that you went missing.
he takes more solace in what it is that you say there, and like actually looks at you and gives like a same kind of nod, but actually giving you a full-on look, whereas before he was kind of like looking down and into himself. But again, he appreciates the words of both of you guys. As you're kind of walking away with him, as he leads you, you actually see there's clearly like a scout. Like you can tell because the way that they're dressed, the horse that they're on, they like ride up, they give you like the salute or whatever it is as they go past you, and they're heading into the camp, clearly delivering some new news to the camp. But you can deal with that when you have your meeting later on. He leads you and says, so he says, back to more pressing matters, I suppose. We've gathered this farmer, I guess is the best way to describe them, as Leon had said. But this farmer's a little bit unique. Are you familiar with the mushroom people that exist?
I've heard of them, but I can't say I've ever met one.
Wait, is this not gonna... Is this really gonna be annoying? So sorry. Oh, here we go. Okay. There we go. My apologies. You said I've heard of them, but I can't say I've ever met one.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I hadn't either prior to today. Nemomycin, that's what they're called. The mushroom people. They tend to live underground in sewers of cities, so you probably would find them if you traveled through the sewers of Haude Gwenh or places like that. You usually wouldn't find them. I mean, for instance, Kurzfall is too small. We don't even have a sewer system set up yet, so they wouldn't exactly live there yet. There's an isolated one. They're fungus people, like a colony of mushrooms, so they tend to live in tight-knit communities. This one was found out here by himself, farming on his own, which is highly unusual. Anyways, we found the creature, and he's, or it's, or she, or I don't know. We kept it aside because, unfortunately, it just kind of plumes. Anytime anybody tries to get near it, it plumes this, like, cloud of spores, and I'm not very I've never encountered one. I don't really know much about them. The two of you can roll a knowledge local or knowledge nature to see what you happen to know about them. Oh, hello. Or knowledge engineering works as well. But ooh. I'm waiting for, I think, somebody else to roll their roll.
Yeah, I had to restart roll 20.
You're fine.
What was it? Local.
Local dungeoneering or nature. All different DCs, but that's fine. What do you do? Roll whatever's best for you. So you've all heard of them. There's no question about that. They're all mushroom people. There's no question about that. You know that they are communities. Like this is to both of you. You know they live in communities, so on and so forth. That they're relatively peaceful. You've never heard of like them necessarily attacking people beyond like small rumors here and there. They don't. They just kind of like stay to the side, keep to themselves, try to not get noticed. Blah 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 blah. That's what you guys mostly know. You know that they don't exist in places like the Barren Lands. One that's definitely a thing. But Neil, what you also happen to know, they can't speak. You actually understand what it is that he's trying to describe. They can't speak. They lack vocal cords, the ability to speak normally. Actually, what they do is they are able to speak through their spores. They literally almost like infect you with their spores and are able to send out like somehow once their spores are kind of like breathed in by you, so they kind of like settle within like your lungs, your throat, your ears, your eyes. Once they kind of like you're bathed in their spores, they gain an ability to kind of like communicate with you, that they can kind of push forward and speak to you. And you've even heard rumors that people that train themselves like well enough, that really practice this, have learned how to talk back to them in this silent way. But that requires you don't know how long, but a long period of time of training and fairly consistent exposure to it for that to happen. Either way, you know that this is what it is. And he looks to you and says, so he looks at you and you kind of like have a look of recognition in your eyes that he picks up pretty quickly. And he says, you know of these?
Yes, I've read of them. When you study in a Malta, there's a multitude of books, some of which are more interesting than others. I found the idea of a mushroom person that contacts you via inhaling its spores to be quite fanciful, and so I read it a little in my youth. They're not capable of communicating like you or I. They hijack your ear in a way. When you breathe in, what it is that I presume the fellow that you have captured is doing is attempting to communicate rather than poison you. I know a little more than perhaps the average person, but it's nothing huge. I should imagine that this individual's attempting to communicate.
He thinks, he's like, well, I'm going to have to defer to you. Usually I'm the one that seems to be usually I'm the most knowledgeable person in the room, but unfortunately for this one, I'm going to have to defer to you. He kind of leads you down to the area where you can see the thing is inside like a wooden like stockade. And there are people like that are guarding it, but they're like pulled back, so like a solid like 20 feet away from this thing, so that there's nobody's too close to it. You look at the creature. It's very interesting looking, which I'll get to in a second. But actually not in a second. I'll describe right now. I don't think I have. Yeah. So I have the creature stands at a sorry, just double checking some details. Sorry, it's been a long time since I wrote what mycen are. The new mycen are compared to like what I'm actually using them.
Yeah, I hope you guys are excited. This means they're going to be unlocked in the community game.
Yeah, something like that. All right, so
it's like, oh god, more work.
All right, so a creature stands at just over 5 feet tall, but it is for being a mushroom. You have to imagine it is more like what you'd imagine, like a what's that kind of mushroom called? Like a shiitake kind of mushroom. You know what I mean? Like a rather slender one, as opposed to being like a fat, plump, like white button or portobello mushroom. Like a very, very thin kind of stalk would be where its like body and its legs come down from, and its arms are again also rather thick. But its head at the top comes as like a small little cap which I believe shiitake also have small little caps on top as well. Almost has like a small little cap on top of it. The thing is just over 5 feet tall. The whole thing is rather slender. It's very alien in how it moves. The way it kind of like moves around and whatnot, it clearly doesn't have a mouth. It just has like the weird strands that the undercap of a mushroom have over in the area where like a nose or mouth or neck would be. And obviously literally the undercap of the mushroom still has that kind of like stranded area that I just described, but it does clearly have eyes. Very obviously has eyes, but the eyes look kind of like that of a doe. If a doe had zero white whatsoever, huge eyes for the size of its head that are completely black. Nothing but pupil throughout the whole thing, it seems. As it kind of like looks around, the whole thing looks incredibly alien to you. Neither of you have ever seen one before, and it's genuinely surprising to see a literal mushroom moving about there. Its coloration is mostly that kind of like palish, with little darker areas. Palish by the base, a little bit darker brown, moving upwards. So like its feet are almost like a pale brown, almost like a darker brown throughout most of its body, arms, and legs. But then once you get around the area where like maybe the top of the chest, shoulders, and head would be, and the undercap of the mushroom are all like a vibrant purple. But the top cap of the mushroom again is like a darkish brown, greenish color that looks like it might blend in well with almost like a forest setting. The thing is kind of standing there. It clearly notices the two of you approaching and is looking at the two of you. And even though it doesn't have you don't have the ability to see where it's focusing its eyes, because its eyes all look uniformly the same, the way that it's looking over in the direction of you two, you get the impression that this thing is a very keen creature, and it recognizes that you two are of import as it looks to you. After you guys are looking upon it and vice versa, Elliot gestures to the thing with like a half-hearted chuckle. He's like, huh, the men have been calling it mice in the tender.
Maybe they know what they're talking of. I suppose there's no reason to delay this any longer.
Okay.
Wherein will take a few steps forward, stop, incline his head to the creature, wait for a response, and then proceed closer.
It doesn't respond. One of the things that you'll notice is it kind of just watches you. Doesn't respond. You get closer. Do you walk all the way up to just outside the cell, the stockade?
Yep.
One, you as well?
No, I'm not breathing in those spores.
Okay, so you stay back here with Elliot. And so you walk forward, and as you walk forward, you can see that the little strands like that make up it's like the underneath the mushroom, its face, stuff like that, like the top of a stalk of a mushroom. Again, we've all held mushrooms and looked at them and gone like, hey, look at these little strand things, these little like flaps. You can see that those not uniformly, but all at once start like quivering for a second as the thing literally spews out spores in every direction, just kind of like a cloud of spores come out in every direction all around it. And as the spores come out, you kind of get a moment of hesitation yourself, I imagine, even though you know what it's doing. There's a moment of hesitation as you're like, I'm literally able to breathe in this creature. And then it literally starts to rest upon your head, your shoulders, your face, whatever it is. And I imagine inevitably you take it in. And funny that you cough, because the first time you take it in, first few times you take it in to get used to it, it actually causes a bit of a cough. It's literally like a foreign substance, literally breathing in another organism into your lungs and whatnot. You give it a little bit of a cough and whatnot as you take it in. But it's almost like the actual cough, like the vibrations of your, I almost said urethra, esophagus and whatnot, and like the vibrations of it maybe make the spores embed themselves.
Scott's remembering last night the vibrations of his urethra.
Esophagus is the word I'm looking for. My apologies. You can all of a sudden start to feel like almost like a slight humming or like a vibration or something like that lasts for a couple seconds before it stops. Do you say anything, or do you wait for it to communicate first?
Raymond would say, can you understand me?
You hear, less of hear, you feel. It's a weird sensation because it's not like anything you've ever heard beforehand. It is a degree of hearing where it almost comes like a whisper in your ears, as literally the spores themselves that have implanted themselves in many parts of your face and head and whatnot react to whatever it is that this Neomycin are doing. They vibrate ever so slightly, and those vibrations literally trigger your small bones inside your ear, which allow you to hear what it's saying, right? So they vibrate ever so slightly, allowing you to hear almost like a whisper. But at the same time that you hear that, you kind of get other senses as well. You almost get like funny tastes. You almost get funny smells at the same time that you're hearing it speak. And its response is very simple. Yes.
My name is wherein. I am one of the leaders of the individuals who've invaded your home. First off, I would like to apologize for doing this. We were not aware that this land was occupied. Secondly, I would beg that you might listen to our story and give us your blessing to reside upon this land for a short period of time.
It responds saying, "You've already taken. Why are you asking?"
We took without prior knowledge. I would amend that wrong if I could.
You've killed some of my crop and taken others.
Please understand that I'm not knowledgeable of everything you speak. What is your crop?
A variety of things.
If you might elaborate, I could perhaps organize protection for your crop.
It responds saying, there are multiple types of crop, some more important than others. What protection do you offer?
I am one of the rulers of many of these people. I could ask that they forgo disturbing your crops.
Will I be repaid for what has been taken?
I would like to say yes, but it is dependent on the cost.
I have not been allowed to my crop. I have not been allowed to inventory.
Rayon would step forward and cut or undo the binding of the stockade.
Yeah, so it's like either cut or untie the literally simple, like it's not like there's steel or iron, here it's literally just and so you do that. It sees you do that, but this thing is barely moved. It does not move. It's not like it's a fungus. It doesn't move much. It comfortably just stands there.
He'd also open because this guy might not be able to physically open. He doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
My people have unknowingly done you wrong. I understand that makes it difficult to trust us. However, it was ignorance, not evil, that caused this mistake.
Why are you here?
I already said to make amends.
Why are you here?
We are here en masse in the gathering of an army. Us humans, Mol, orcs, we have a disagreement with some other humans, Mol, to the south. We will fight to determine a victor. I believe what we do is the right thing.
Do they believe that too?
I think so. Their leaders do, but their people not so. They are coerced. Their crop is punished by their leaders. They're withheld water and food should they not do as they're asked.
Do you intend to stay?
I intend at this point to stay. Not permanently, however.
When do you plan to leave?
Once we have won a decisive battle. South of the city, that is just south of here, we intend to have a field of battle there that will clash in great numbers. Should we win there, we will move forward. Should we lose there, we may remain longer or fall back. Either way, if the latter comes to pass, I suspect your fields will be stomped over by many more than just us.
I will check on my fields. You get the impression, sense motive. Unfortunately, you have a penalty on it because you're very unfamiliar with this kind of creature, but you get a sense motive check.
I'm very familiar with this creature. Some might say 20 familiar.
Well, no, you get nothing. He says, he just simply says, I will check on my field.
Might I ask, should you harm others, the people will be upset. If you travel as you are and do not harm others, then you will not be harmed. However, I cannot promise that my people will not react poorly should you poison more of them.
I have never harmed anyone.
I understand that that may not have been your intention, but some of my men lie injured, unable to fight.
They trespassed, and they ate things they shouldn't.
I agree that they ate things they shouldn't. However, how were we to know?
Education.
Did you educate us before poisoning us?
I don't understand.
And I think right there is the key to this problem, no? A lack of understanding on both parties.
I grew crops. They ate crops. They are now sick.
A lack of understanding, no?
They should be educated on what they can eat.
Indeed. Check your crops. I will see whether we can pay you for what is lost when you return. I do not know what sort of payment you would accept. I do not know what you use your crops for. However, if they are virulently poisonous but don't cause death, I can think of many uses for them.
Only some of the crops are important. I will go check on my crops.
Would you care for an escort?
When you say that, you actually see it move, like more than just little bits here and there for the first time since you started talking to it or started walking to you or whatever it is. You started walking towards it, I mean. It actually like looks around towards like all the different peoples that are here and whatnot. And then it looks back at you and says, no.
Very well then. I presume this being your land, you will not struggle to find me.
You all look the same.
In that case, ask for me. My name is wherein, chosen of the quill.
When I try to speak, others attack.
Very well, I will come with you. Let us go now. We'll inspect these crops and we'll sort this matter.
No. And he starts like walking.
May I ask why? We're beginning to ascertain the fact that you have no way to contact me.
You asked if I wanted escort. I said
Yes. But if you have no way to contact me, then what is the purpose of checking your crops? You go for quests without an end.
no. My crops are my end.
Yes, but if we do not move or desist in harming your crops, then surely this is a pointless task.
I'm going to go check on my crops.
Okay. I also shall wander in a similar direction to you.
It doesn't respond. It just starts walking.
Wherein's going to follow it.
Yep, that's fine. Do you like side by side with it? Hang back like 50
He just
feet?
follows it for, not like 50 feet, like maybe, I don't know, 20 feet.
Okay.
As
One,
he
do
goes
you,
by the others, he's like, mushrooms, and rolls his eyes.
one, do you follow with him?
No, one turns to him and says, I'm going to seek out 2 and 3. I'll meet you back at the command tent.
Be careful.
Of?
Well, if you exercise something, something gets released.
He looks at you confused.
He's going to speak with 2 and 3, right?
Yeah.
What was once a seed may become a tree. He looks at Ellie and he says, if you intend to fiddle with the axe, be careful. You do not know exactly what is within it. Do not release it.
Don't
He
really
rolls his eyes. He rolls his eyes again and then continues.
So when you go and follow this creature that they're calling Mycin, the Tender or whatever, you follow him, and he does go outside the north part of your camp. You can literally see, northwest part of your camp or whatever it is. You do actually see pretty much right outside the wall. They're building walls, so the walls are actually predominantly being built to the south and the east or whatever, because that's where, and a little bit to the west, because that's where you expect an army to come up from. But they're eventually going to build it all the way around or whatever. You can see the area where the crops definitely were. Okay, yep, there was definitely, this is where tobacco would have been grown, and they've kind of trumped through here. There's other because it's springtime, so tobacco doesn't grow in, that requires hot weather. So I wouldn't be there, but you can definitely see where there are other crops, like foods and whatnot, that were clearly would have been growing, like maybe berry bushes, stuff like that. We're here and everything's been stripped clean. You can see that kind of stuff. Do me a favor, roll me a survival or nature, whichever's better for you. As you're walking along with him, you can see he's just kind of walking past all these destroyed crops or torn up or whatever it is areas. He doesn't seem to care about them at all. One of the things that you notice is that some of the berry bushes that have been pulled up are definitely berries that shouldn't be eaten. They're ones that turn your insides and give you diarrhea and stuff like that. We're talking days of discomfort is what's going to come from them. You can also see as you're walking by other areas that there's crops that are not meant to be eaten, that are meant to be more smoked or stuff like that. Because you understand the basic, even if it's not the actual in full bloom, you're like, oh, I know that plant. I've seen this kind of growth beforehand. I understand this stuff to a degree. So you get the idea, he grows a very many varied crop. You imagine he probably just does this as oh, this stuff is so year round. He has a harvest that he can use for trading. Who he trades with, you have no idea. You know what I mean? You don't think you've ever heard of him in this area. But no. Either way.
No, I don't think we have.
Technically, actually, it's been talked about in other chat rooms. He's actually been mentioned.
Not our chat room, the important one.
He's actually been mentioned multiple times in the campaign, which is funny. So you don't think you've ever heard of him beforehand, and you're kind of making your way through. But he's walking past all this stuff. He clearly doesn't care about this. Then eventually, as he continues walking along, he just comes to a full stop at the same time that he just says, "Stop." And again, he's not. You just hear it. You just kind of and you almost smell something that's offensive as he says, "Stop."
It's like walking around with Scott. Raymond would like slow down, but he'd wander like closer towards the shroomy man himself, but not like beyond him. It's just like when someone's like, "Stop there," and you're like, "What?" And you know,
Kind of
take
catch
a
up.
few more steps towards them. Yeah.
Yep. And after you like do finally stop, that couple extra steps or whatever, then you do finally stop. He then takes a few more steps forward over into kind of like a mossy patch area, like where a bunch of trees are, and you can see like looking up ahead of where it is he's stepping into.
Throwing his little babies.
There's like a dense tree area, because the whole area around here is forest, sure, but mostly it's pretty sparse. You know what I mean? But what he happens to be stepping into is almost like a little grovey kind of area where there's a bit more of a dense growth of trees. And then he kind of makes his way through this like mossy area and ends up kind of stepping out of sight around the trees. And you can hear movement over there without like seeing what he's doing, but he's clearly checking on or attending to whatever crops might be over in that region as well. Do you do anything?
I'd never known farmers to be so secretive regarding their crops.
He doesn't respond.
Everything okay back there?
You hear, once again, like a whisper in your ear, despite how far he might be. Yes.
This the important crop then?
A couple moments later, yes.
Is it related to you?
The response you get isn't a verbal one. It's almost like a confused sense of smell and like a taste that just genuinely boggles your mind. Like, what is that? Oh. Even though your sense motive is garbage, you get the impression that it is sharing with you confusion.
I wonder if these are your offspring of sorts? How you replicate, duplicate, procreate?
It responds and says, no.
I will admit I'm rather intrigued.
Another 30 seconds to a minute pass, and then you see him coming out backwards, and he's pulling something with him as he's coming out backwards. And eventually you see what he ends up coming around the tree with pulling is somebody's leg, as he's dragging a clearly dressed soldier of not yours, but of Roga's army out of the bushes that are back here. And he's dragging this half orc out that's clearly too heavy for him to be doing by himself. I mean, just for mechanics, this creature's strength is an 8. You know what I mean? Like, this dragging a half orc out of some
That's one of the men allied to us. Can I ask what it is that you're doing with him?
removing. Continues pulling it out.
Raymond's going to come over and check his pulse.
As you start, as you take your first or second step forward, he says to you again, stop. And then continues trying to pull the thing funny enough towards you.
I want to see whether he's still alive.
No response. He continues pulling it over until finally, assuming you're patient enough, until he finally gets to the moss line. And then kind of once it's at the, down to where the moss kind of came to its start, he, drops the leg down so that you could grab and pull it out more if you want to, or approach it if you want to.
Yeah, Raymond will step forward and check the pulse.
As you step forward over to the moss line itself, you hear, careful. And then when he says that, imagine you kind of look to him instinctively.
Yeah.
And you can see that he actually will place his foot where he's stepping on the moss. He actually shakes his foot a little bit, so it actually kicks the moss and shakes it up a little bit. And Raven's actually a pretty perceptive person, not as much as one, but you can actually see some spores start to kick up from where it was that he had kicked it. There's clearly some sort of natural pollen or whatever it is that's there.
Defense?
He responds, yes.
Thank you for warning me.
And then, you can grab the leg and finish pulling it the rest of the way out, like another 3 feet or so. And then you go to check his pulse. You can roll me a heal, medicine, whatever it is, check.
Heal.
99 soldiers, but this half-orc ain't one. Ugh. Honestly, you're not getting a pulse.
You think he died due to your defenses here?
It makes your mind dream.
He's only asleep.
Dream too long. Dream come real.
I see.
You can see it like it continues giving that like just a constant stare, but you can also see like once again you get this like almost like small buzzing noise, this like strange smell and taste that are coming off of it that show that it's kind of like you get the impression off of it that it's trying to actually roll me another sense motive because you guys are almost like a new scenario because you've traveled with throwing.
Nice, even worse.
God, you're rolling terrible. You honestly have no idea what it's trying to do. It's trying to communicate something to you that's kind of beyond Rayron's ability to perceive.
Your crop is fine, the important one.
Wounds will be mended.
How then can we come to an agreement, a deal? Moving this many people is logistically challenging and expensive. I would not move it unless I had to.
I don't know how you do things. Tell people, don't come here. Tell people, stay from here.
Just here, yes.
It'll say yes. Other crop, what value? Give me the value.
I rolled a pretty good nature check.
Mm-hmm. You would have to speak with, maybe like an Edric or maybe just other persons here that understand this stuff a little bit better. Actually, you do have your trader, your merchant person with you. What the hell's his name? Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry. NPCs, open that back up. Arthur. Arthur's with you. Arthur actually might be able to give you a little bit of yeah, he's a diplomat, but he comes from a trading,
That's true. That's true.
So he might be able to give you better insight as to what the value might be.
I would have to speak to my people to estimate a value. What would you accept in payment?
Peace.
I see. You don't want access to our midden heaps. That was a joke. But you can have access if you need more fertilizer.
When you mention fertilizer and all that stuff, he does say that would be good.
Good. At least we can go some way to righting our wrong. You stay here. If my people see you, they will ignore you as best they can. You're not confined to this area. But should I require to find you, this is where I will return.
I'm not always here.
That's fine. As for your area that you wish to have protected, might I suggest that we place some posts of wood around the area? My people are not as perceptive when it comes to spot it. He points to the spore ring.
Rotting wood harms the crop.
What would be an appropriate barrier
then? It thinks for a couple moments, but again, it's it's trying to come up with an idea of what it can do, and then it finally decides. You can see it thinks for a solid minute because it's trying to figure out a way of communicating with you in a way that you'd probably understand. It picks up a rock from the ground, kind of like a sharpened rock, not just like a random one that has a bit of like an edge to it, not like super like, oh, this is a fucking arrowhead, but you know, like a rock to it. And Mark walks his way over to a tree, probably a good like 30 feet away from where the moss begins, and just picks up the rock and just like drags it enough on the tree that you can see it makes a small amount of like scratch in the bark, like kind of like back and forth a few times, so it makes a small scratch in the bark, and then gestures towards that.
That's not a bad idea. In the morning, I will return and I will mark the area.
It says, agreed.
Overnight, I don't know whether you sleep. It might be worth leaving a small mark on the trees that you wish to have marked, and I can mark them in a way that my people will not miss.
I nourish at night.
Cool. I'll see you in the morning then. What should we call you?
It thinks for a few moments and says, we don't have names.
That seems strange. You're an individual, no?
It thinks for a few moments. You get a little bit of confusion and whatnot from it. And then just gives you a very tentative yes. But it's like slightly remorseful yes.
Perhaps a name would give you some purpose.
Doesn't respond.
Well then, good night.
You say, good night, and it responds, it is day.
Is it? I thought it was the fucking evening.
You know what? You are correct, because you guys traveled straight through into the evening. You are, because you traveled all hard day long. No, because you slept. That's right. You slept on your way down here. It is day. It is day, okay. Sir. It is day. He says, it is day. Well, you get the impression that this creature is, literal? If maybe it's intentionally literal, you don't know yet.
Right. Well, goodbye then.
And when you say that, it turns away. But as it turns away, you can actually feel like this weird, like strange, like almost like gag or like tickling sensation. It's like, oh. And you can literally feel
and gift, so it's just just endless.
and you can literally feel it's like spores kind of like shedding themselves from inside of your body, and you almost get like a weird like tingling sensation as you like cleaning them out of your ears or whatever. As and then by the time you get your way back to the camp, you've shed yourself of these spores so they're not I suppose within you anymore, have no more influence on you anymore.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So sorry, Jake, you had to watch that fun conversation.
Didn't communicate with my parasite when he spored that.
It's a really good question, but why don't we? You don't know how many levels of communication you can maintain at once, but why don't we take a quick break because Scotty boy got to pee, and we'll be back in a moment. So as always, I will do a quick little commercial break while we're on break. By quick, I mean 3 minute. In hopes that stops anybody from popping in the middle of the regular show, that they don't have to suffer through commercials to come in. All right, we'll be right back. Or you can sub, that's an option too, but you don't have to. We love you anyways.